Sandra. Just thought it was a good place to kind of stop and get your input again, so that I can show you where things are at. So this is the actual scale plan of your garden now. So we've got all the measurements correct, and you know, I just needed to play with the design a little bit and to see how it would all fit in and how all the shapes would work. So thank you for your input about the summer house. At the moment, as we said, I've just put it in at sort of 3 meters across, in terms of, you know, just to put something in there as a circular shape for now, just so that we can see how it would all fit together. Obviously the tree line is a little bit rough, and you know, I'm not sure exactly where that lies, but you know, I'm kind of happy that it's nestled in kind of just in front of the tree line perhaps there, and how that could work. So I've suggested at the moment doing a circular kind of border around, if it was to be a circular summer house, in the small paving unit that we want to use alongside a paving slab. So as per all the mood board photos I showed you last time, I sort of see this as a kind of small brick or a set, like a sandstone set, and I think it would be nice to have that as a base here rather than paving slabs in front. And also the areas that are kind of look like this kind of bark area, that just denotes planting. So I have in mind that, you know, where your summer house is or wherever it ends up, that we extend a kind of curve of planting around it. It's almost like giving the summer house a hug. It kind of comes around it. I sort of often feel with garden structures and buildings, if they're just plonked in the middle, or you know, if they haven't got anything surrounding them, they kind of look like they've landed from nowhere, from another planet. So I always like to kind of extend a bit of planting area around a building or structure. It's just kind of one of my things. But anyway, so that's that area of detail, and then the rest of it is kind of as per plan. I've kind of worked a little bit more on the shapes and the proportions, and a suggestion of kind of where paving would be staggered. It would be nice to take out some of the areas of paving around the summer house to have planting areas. So this is a planting area here where this little funny hand is, and then another planting area around here. And then from your feedback, I've swapped this over to perhaps a wall area rather than hedging going around here, and that all ties in rather nicely into your dining area. I like the fact that we've managed to kind of enclose it, and also the reason for this little staggered edge here, I don't want it to look like a solid line of paving all the way around the house. So I kind of like to think of it from the kitchen window with the focal point here, and the paving kind of almost wrapping around as if this was following a curve, but it's in straight lines, and it's kind of nipping in almost to the waist of it here, and then it's coming out again. So that's kind of what I've tried to do. Obviously this would depend on the size of the slabs used, exactly where the shapes would fall, but that's kind of how I imagined it. And then from the study area here, going out, as we said, over the growing area, and then that all rather links in rather nicely, because around here you would sort of walk around these planters, and we've got this woodland path that I've kind of incorporated from I think it was another designer, sort of design option 4 or something. So we've got the idea of this woodland path extending from the paving area and out into the woodland, and then that's kind of mirrored on the other side by this kind of path that would go and lead to the gazebo summer house. For this, I imagine this to be similar to that lovely photo on the mood board, using a sort of gravel chip, a lovely kind of mixed tones, tying in the sort of pinky amber tones and the greys, and sort of having this softer material but edged in the little sandstone there, in the little sets, which would be rather nice. This is a water feature here, I think, would be nice. I mean, it would be nice to have bubbling water here rather than just a bird bath or something. Again, surrounded by a little area of planting. And then I've worked on the proportions and sizes for this main long border and the focal point here. So I'll just zoom in there for you a minute. Let's just move this up a bit. Okay, there. So just zooming in here. What I've done is actually taken direction and proportions from the dimensions of the sunroom. So I've extended the first step and a second step down from the doors, and then taken the width of this border as the total width of the sunroom. And I was just sort of playing with that. It looks nice visually on the plan. Whether that's big enough for you in reality, I'd sort of like to know how you feel about that. And I kind of like this idea of having a sort of lawn centre going through. It's quite sort of stately homeish. It's I'm sort of thinking of National Trust properties almost, but you know, it wouldn't be that formal. But we've got a sort of walk of 159, so just over 1.5 meters wide there, which is lined up beautifully with the sort of opening here from your doors. And I just think it would make a lovely viewpoint down. Then to have this long border of planting and a little bit of hedging and this kind of, you know, centre detail, the kind of quadrant, classic quadrant detail in the middle. And I've been thinking about what kind of materials I would like for this. And again, I think to use the little sandstone set for edgings and as almost like a little landing point here, and then change to a gravel surface for the cross, centre cross, and a solid stone paved area in the middle, which I think at this point, to just keep clear, I did toy with putting another feature in the middle here, but I think actually just to walk through it and focus more on the centre point out here into the woodland. And this we can talk about, you know, what exactly this would be, whether this is a beautiful sculpture, something that you could have commissioned, possibly something local. I don't know if there would be anything available locally, or even if it was something off the shelf, you know, just a very simple sandstone sphere, or all sorts of things that could be. But, you know, I've kind of made it more interesting by having different surfaces radiating out from the centre. So I'm almost imagining a sort of low planting around whatever it is, you know, sort of low fluffy ferns and soft planting all around the base, almost like a little collar around, you know, whatever this structure is going to be, to kind of hug it, and then perhaps an area of gravel or pebble, and then the sandstone sets. So that's the kind of detail that I'd thought through there. And then I was thinking more about the steps and the access out. So what I've done is, I wanted your feedback on this, but I thought it would be helpful at this stage to go one step further and start projecting this up into a 3D image so that we could see all the different levels and things. So let me just swap over to the 3D model that I've produced, and there, this might give us now a better idea. So this is the flat plan just raised up, and I've taken up some of those items so that you can get a better view. I love it when we get to this 3D stage and suddenly the whole thing comes to life. So this is no different, nothing has changed from that flat plan that I've just shown you, but you can just see perhaps a little bit better how this might work. This is just a big urn that I've put here at the bottom, just because it was something that I found on the sort of 3D software that was available to me. So, but as I say, this could be anything, a piece of sculpture or anything, but it just shows you how that will draw the eye out into that section and how it could look from the front with this neat clipped hedge. And then here you can see more the step detail. I'd like to go quite wide on that first landing point. I think it's quite important to take a step out sort of further than the width of the doorway, if you like, and it just gives a nice kind of resting point there, and then the second step down. And I've worked these out to be very helpful with normal sizes. So usually sandstones come in 30s, 60s and 90s, so it would be helpful to you when you're building it not to have too many cuts. So I've kind of worked off those multiples of 3. I've got a 90cm landing at the top, and I should have, if I've done this right, yes, a sort of 30 for the second step. So that just minimises expense and waste, which I'm all for. Hate wastage when you're buying materials. Now this is kind of just to demonstrate your idea of having a wall here. I like that idea. I think that works nicely. It still has the same effects that I wanted to create of kind of, you know, having a little bit of a visual boundary, and to sort of soften off the staggered paving. And I think it would make a nice backdrop actually for planting. So we can talk about what kind of height you imagine this kind of wall to be and the sort of materials for that wall. But it would be nice to have soft planting here, slightly taller at the back. And you know, this wall can, I mean, you won't want it obviously huge, you won't want it too tiny, just somewhere kind of, I think I'd put it at around a height of sort of 50. Where are we at? Oh, it's actually up at 70 at the moment. So yes, that's something that you could have a think about. This then shows how the table sort of dining area would work, and I imagine this feature to be quite a substantial feature here. I think it would be important for your kitchen window view that it's not something too small that just gets lost behind your furniture. So I think that looks quite cool, having something, you know, like a real proper big feature. Big granite sphere bubble jet I've put in here, that would just flow over into pebbles, and then the water just recycles round and creates a nice kind of noise as well. When it's nice to hear running water, I think, when you're sitting outside. So there we have it. Over to this side. I wasn't quite sure what your thoughts are. Yeah, I'm sort of keen to have your thoughts on what I've done here. For the steps here, I noticed that at the moment there's kind of 3 steps down and the ramp from the door, and only 2 down from this side, and that I can see is because with the ramp they wanted to make it absolutely flush with internal height, you know, if somebody had mobility problems perhaps. What I would like to do, I think it would make more sense, if it's okay with you, to just keep to the 2 steps, which would be the same at this side from the sunroom, and the same over here. And that means if we just keep to the 2 steps down, you're actually stepping down just as you are now from this study. The first step isn't right up to internal height. You step down onto it, and then again, and then again. And it just means with 2 steps rather than 3, we're not encroaching too much out into our patio space that we've got. And I was finding this a little bit tight for space, to have the growing area kind of here. But anyway, I'll come to that in a minute. So what I wanted to do was unify this access out from the study and from this, I think, kitchen door. Yes, the kitchen door here. Get rid of that ramp so that we've got more room, obviously, for your table and chairs. So that frees up all the area in front of the kitchen window. But unify it this way instead, and have this all tied in together as one lovely big wide step. It's a lovely feature to have big wide steps like that, and it actually means that you can put pots and plants and troughs, you know, actually on the step itself if you wanted to. So if you wanted to plant something between these 2 doorways, I could suggest, you know, something like a composite material. You can get these things that look like real stone, but they're not actually real stone, but they're not as heavy, but they're kind of stone material. They're a much lighter weight kind of resin material, And if this was filled up with tall planting here, I think it would look lovely in this space that we've got here. The only thing you will have to do to unify this step is to create a little echo drain inlet here to make sure that you've got sufficient air circulation around the house, because obviously we're sort of building this up at the moment. The step doesn't come this high between here, and I did notice there's an air brick around here somewhere, so we need to keep that clear. So yeah, it's quite a good idea up against the house to just put in a little steel drainage channel, just to keep things you know, keep water away from the house and to keep the circulation good. So yes, at the moment, let's just spin this around so you can see how this would look with the planting areas there, with the sort of raised bed. Now, I don't know if this is what you had in mind, Sandra, so let me know your feelings on this. This is the kind of viewpoint out. I've put those tripod things in. I thought it'd be quite nice to have a sort of feature, something like a really beautifully crafted timber, what are they called? Obelisk. A sort of obelisk effect as a kind of feature, so it would look slightly less just utility. I was slightly worried that perhaps having these growing areas outside, straight outside this door, is a little bit too sort of utility through there. I don't know if that's okay, if you're happy with that close to your seating area, or whether we need to divide this off a little bit more. I'm quite happy with it now. I've sort of designated the area with a change of materials, so the stuff that looks like buff colour would be the big sandstone sort of slabs, the paving, the natural stone paving, and then this smaller brick detail are the little sets. And also I think it would be good to put the risers, the step risers, in the small unit, and then the paving slab on the top, like so. But at the moment I've played around with the heights of these. I'm not sure what these would be built from. I've made them timber at the moment. I'm sort of thinking sleepers, perhaps used oak railway sleepers. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are here. I'll just jump to the overall view again and show you all of this, and there we are. So yeah, let me know your feedback on all that we've talked through, and I shall leave it with you, Sandra, and look forward to your response. Thanks for now. Bye.